Okay. This webinar is being recorded, and we have today with us Mike Lorelli. Mike Lorelli is an operating partner at Falcon Head and executive chairman of Rita's Ices, and he's had 4 previous portfolio engagements. From my experience, and I talk to hundreds, if not thousands, of executives a year, Mike is probably the executive who's run the most PE engagements I've ever met in the history of private equity. He's been doing it over 25 years. We'll get to Mike in a few moments. I want to mention that this webinar is being sponsored by Blackmore Partners and Blackmore Partners Connects. Mike is going to be talking today specifically, Mike Lorelli, about landing C-level opportunities. Before we get to that, I'm going to do a little presentation so that all of you have a better understanding of Blackmore Partners and what its mission is. Its mission is to assist executives to get into private equity. We see that there are 5 ways to land a role in private equity these days. Private equity, basically, the 2 main ones is you got a deal or your deal thesis. The deal is the #1 way to get into private equity. Now, a lot of executives say, well, I don't have a deal. Well, one of the reasons Blackmore Partners exists is to coach and mentor you at no cost, because we get paid by private equity, to develop an acquisition-based deal thesis and then bring it to private equity for funding. Deals, throughout, each of you have a network of people you know. You know suppliers, customers, fringe associates. There are people all around you. There are deals everywhere. There is well over a million privately held companies that are not in the hands of private equity. And those opportunities are opportunities for you to go after in your, preferably in areas of your expertise, and Blackmore can coach you and develop you to do that. Okay, so a deal is #1. A deal thesis is #2. So why do we talk about a deal thesis is so important? Is a deal thesis is the way to get the attention of private equity. Most executives, as Mike will talk about today, what they do is they send in a resume. They say, hey, here's how great I am. Look at my history. Private equity doesn't have time to think about how they can utilize you. But if you develop a deal thesis, you become what we call a purple squirrel. Okay? Now, if you think about in each of you, wherever you're calling from, and if you think about where you were this morning, and if you look in your backyard, most of you only have brown squirrels, gray squirrels, but how many of you ever seen a purple squirrel? And if you did, you would remember it. Doing a deal thesis, sending that out to private equity, and letting them know that you're looking for an acquisition partner is unheard of. 99.999% practice the common everyday squirrel strategy of just saying, here's my resume, here's how great I am, hire me. They don't have time for it. They have more money than time. The third way to get into private equity is you wait for a recruiter's call. Now, from the research that we're getting from our recruiters, we have a big recruiting practice, only 10% of the hiring is being done that they're being told by private equity. So 9 out of 10 slots at the C level, the very senior level, which is what you want to get in on, the partners themselves in charge of the portfolio company or the company they're about to buy are doing the decision-making themselves along with the management team. The fourth way to get into private equity is hire your own personal recruiter. Excellent strategy. Find a recruiter that knows private equity, work with them, and in about 6 months to a year, you will have a role done. The average cost these days, I've heard as low as $10,000 a month, but I'm hearing $15,000 a month. Great way to go. Great investment for private equity. The last way to go with private equity is go to where private equity firms go. Now, all of you, given your respective industries, have industry events. And the reason why you go to those industry events is because it's a place to be seen by others and see others. It's a great networking opportunity. You don't have to go anywhere for all these meetings. Everything's set up for you. In private equity, there's ACG, 25 conferences a year or more, AMAA, 2 conferences a year, and now Blackmore Connects, which does 6 conferences a year, and they're only for the BMC conferences. Blackmore Connects are only for executives. Okay. At Blackmore, there's 3 areas of Blackmore. There's the backable exec process, which we help you develop an acquisition-based deal thesis, go find targets, and then when that owner wants to sell, we go shopping, get the money, you run it, salary, bonus, at least 5% equity. Okay. We're looking for executives with $50 million P&L responsibility. Okay. Talent acquisition search, our talent group. We have 2 partners there, Mike Johnson, Xian Chow, working on over 200 searches a year for private equity. They will reach out to you whenever they have a fit. If we don't have your updated resume, please make sure we get it. The Blackmore Connects group provides you with the tools, the templates, the education, the networking opportunities to land private equity opportunities in as little as 3 months, but typically 6. Okay, this is more about it. And in a minute, we're going to be going to Mike Lorelli. And Mike, I'm almost ready to get to you. I'm going to go back to the screen. I can pull it up. Okay, which is okay, here we go. Okay, Mike, can you hear me?
I've got you loud and clear, Gerald.
Okay, Mike, I am going to go now make you presenter in just a moment. And before I do, once again, Mike's an operating partner at Falcon Head Capital, an executive chairman at Rita's Ices. He's led 4 portfolio engagements, Riverside Company, Pusheen Cook Capital Management, Rutledge Capital. Previously, Mike's been a PepsiCo division president twice. Mike was also on the board of Javo Beverage, IC Control, CP Kelco, and I can't pronounce that last one. AXXUNE, Mike, what is that?
Axune.
Axune, okay. He's a master's level accredited at both the American College of Corporate Directors and the National Association of Corporate Directors. He also Blue Steps advisor and coach on landing board seats. I want to show everyone his website right here. Mike's website coaching development program. If you go to fasterlandings.com, click on landing board seats, you'll find this with Mike. The feedback on Mike is infamous in his coaching and developing executives who want to get board seats. He has an excellent process. He's accredited. So definitely check out his seat. Get in touch with him about how to land board seats. Okay? Mike's been a loyal fan of Blackmore Partners and is presenting his private equity play today, landing board seats and landing in private equity. Today it's landing in private equity webinars. Next, later in August, we'll be doing the private equity play. Today we're landing in private equity. So, Mike, a question for you. You've offered many good strategies and tactics. What's the single best one or the best one to start with? And I'm going to make you presenter as I do this, okay?
Yeah. So, Gerald, the single most important thing to do, and it's the easiest thing to do, so if you were lazy and only wanted to do one thing right, it would be to have an effective LinkedIn profile. So many of the searches today are done by putting in queries and coming up with a dozen names that are handed to an analyst, and he's told to telephone contact and screen as many as you can. Come back to me at 5 o'clock and let me see what it looks like. But that is such an effective device. It is taking over the search profession by storm, and candidly, they don't know what to do about it. They're a little bit of a deer in the headlights. So that's
really
my LinkedIn.
Okay.
Profile.
So LinkedIn, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit today.
Yep.
Okay, Mike, in your, if you, there you go. You just took the screen. Perfect. Thanks, Mike.
Not yet. There we go.
There we go. We see it. Yeah.
All right, I'm getting up a few of these pop-ups coming along. I'm just going to close them out, but you tell me if I've done the wrong thing. Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
So I just want to begin, Gerald, by saying that for the audience, it's been a tremendous relationship that Gerald and I have had over probably coming up on 15 years. He feeds me a lot of business ideas, a lot of deal thesis, and people who can run these companies. And he's just a ready source of talent when I need talent. So when I kind of look at Gerald and Blackmore, I think that they are the right group, because there are too many groups to spend your time on. But they are the right group. You've got AMA, you've got the ACG, and all those groups are terrific, and I attend all of them. Maybe not every meeting, but I frequent an awful lot. But in Gerald's case, it's the execs and it's the PEs. It's not the accountants. It's not the lawyers. Those aren't the people that you're going to those meetings for. So I think that's one of the best plugs for Blackmore. The second piece would be, as you're thinking about a deal thesis, and there is some sophistication involved here, Gerald is the guy to help you steer it into a sellable document. You can't put a price tag on that. And the third piece is, because I'm suspecting that some of the people on the call today may be in transition, is that his Blackmore Talent Division does place, I think you told me, Gerald, 217 people last year. I mean, that's a boxcar number.
Yeah.
That's a boxcar number, given that this is not your mainstream business. All right, in any event, we have a whole boatload of stuff to go through today, and I am so excited because I'm always enthusiastic about speaking to the Blackmore audience, the highest IQ audience on the planet. Lots of good people, lots of good stuff going on, lots of good money can be made, and we have so much to cover, but the only way to make this practical with 40 minutes to go is that I'm going to give you a headline on each page just to give you the thought. I'm not going to read the page. And then I encourage you after the session to review the slides at your leisure and take in more of the content that's on the page. Jerry, as these pop-ups are popping up on my computer, are they popping up on everybody else's?
We barely see them, but what I can tell you is in the pop-up window, one of the there's a box you can check. Don't show it to me again. Okay?
Okay. All right. Okay. So, you know, a good example here is most of us, you know, started or at some point or at some larger company that we're pretty proud of. Maybe it was a Fortune-sized company, et cetera. And the way we typically would walk into an interview setting, a loose interview meeting with a private equity firm, and just more so getting to know. Gerald, is this the one you're telling me to ignore?
Yes. Hit in the box, don't show again. Okay? And then click OK. There's a little box that says don't show again there.
So we all could be tempted to say to somebody with a bunch of enthusiasm and with a good cup of coffee under our belt and say, hey, Jim, great to see you today. Thanks for the time. I just want you to know that I'm an action-oriented executive with 21 years leadership experience with Fortune 500 size Allied Chemical. Now, this is probably the worst way in the world you can introduce yourself to that private equity firm. His reaction. Now, you're prouder than proud about what you said, and what you said is true. But his reaction from where he's sitting is 21 years, ugh. We want to exit this company in 4 years, 7 max. Please get this Rip Van Winkle out of my sight. This guy probably takes 10 years to figure out what Google or Blackmore people can get done in 3 years. So, same message, different words, but same content conceptually. You can see how it can be taken very, very differently. And I'm going to show you a few more examples of this today. So instead of saying you're the fortune train leader that has made a step change in the EBITDA CAGR in every assignment, now this low-key guy has got their attention, as opposed to the one who's told him he's got 21 years continuing in the same groove in the record. Right? This guy is saying, I'm a fortune train leader that has made a step change in the EBITDA CAGR in every assignment, right? This guy isn't wasting time telling him what he was hired to do or what his accomplishments were. He goes right to the bottom line.
That's so great, Michael. I'll tell you, one of the things my recruiters complain about, and we have, there's 8 recruiters that report to Mike Johnson and CN Chow, is that when the executives send in their resume, we don't know what the size of the company was when they started, revenue. We don't know what the revenue EBITDA was, the margins. The everyday executive leaves out that information. And private equity, one of the ways our recruiters, what they're looking for is how much horsepower you have. What's your P&L experience? How have you grown margins or EBITDA? And as you said, some of these other terms that are very important, put those in your resume, or have, if you need to keep them quiet for whatever reason, you need to have a way of telegraphing that to the private equity firms, or they're just like, what does this mean?
Very, very good, Gerald. Thank you for the embellishment. So if you go in instead, rather than telling him you worked forever at one place, if you go in instead and tell him every assignment they gave me, I made a step change to the EBITDA CAGR. This is music to this guy's eyes. In his head, he's going to be thinking on the right side of the page, Jesus, here comes my bonus. Trump, please don't tax carried interest. This is our guy. Vastly different reaction, same communication, same thought, positioned 2 different ways. We're going to do more examples later. Now, we have a boatload of material to go through today. And as I mentioned, I'm going to give you the headline thought on each slide, and you're best off downloading these slides later and going through it casually and taking through the full content. Gerald, when will the slides be available?
They're already uploaded in their control panel. Everyone has it who is on, and if you don't have it, we'll send it out along with an email later on today.
All right. I also sent out, Gerald, to you only about 5 minutes ago, the article that I published in Directorship about the difference.
We'll get that to everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
The difference between someone who makes it in a traditional company versus the private equity space, which I was very flattered to write. Anyway, I have to cover a couple of preliminaries. Consider this housekeeping because 99% of you, I'm sure, know what this is all about. There is a big difference between VC and PE, and I am a PE guy. I am not a fan of VC. I think VC is analogous to gambling. Private equity firms look to buy going concerns. At some point in time, they had an LTM, last 12 months profit trail. They may be broken and losing money today, but at some point in time they made money. That's the key distinction with private equity. We're going to talk about the various positions that you may be interested in attaining as your entree to the private equity space. So at the headquarters, it could be operating partner. That's my day job at Falconhead. Principal, level below. Originator, deal hound, who's going out there scurrying up these deals. And then some junior level people that do a lot of good work. For the portfolio companies, the three levels would be CEO, CFO, and all the other C-level assignments. So we're going to be talking about several of these today. But the more important ones are, and I'd like you to think about this notion of the deal team. Every private equity firm has got this cadre of people that kind of hover over the investment. The operating partner is the senior person, the principal is junior, the associates, etc. And they get the work done. I don't mean to denigrate any of these. The principal typically is very, very, very skilled at loan covenants. He would typically be the person transacting with the bank. That's above my grade level. And again, in a portfolio company, these would be the key levels. So my presentation today is on these red circled positions. A little bit of history, and for some of you who have been through some of my presentations before, it's important that I get you through about 14 ground level slides, just so we all are on the same page in the hymn book. So a little bit of history. KKR formed in 1977. Very good article in today's Wall Street Journal on them and their own succession plan. 1 year later, 80 leveraged buyout groups popped up in the United States. That's kind of like dandelions on your lawn. And then just a few years later, 2,700 around the world. Now, how do we make money? And there's a very good point for all of the people on this call. In the earliest days, it was largely about debt, piling debt on top of the deal, using other people's money. And that's where more of the money was created, the famous KKR Nabisco transaction. The second component is multiple arbitrage, and I'll give you the example of that in a few slides. This means I bought a company for 7 times EBITDA, but because I built it and made it healthier, the next guy is willing to pay me 8 on that multiple all by itself. I made money. Gerald, I'm still seeing these pop-ups. You still want me clicking these off?
Yeah, I don't see them when you're on your screen. They're not showing up okay. on the listener side.
Okay. Are the Trump tweets popping up?
Those are. Thank you. No, they're not.
Okay. And then finally, operational improvement. And you could see in the earliest days that really wasn't the big factor. It really was driven by debt and selling off assets, getting rid of the corporate fleet, selling off a lost division, all those things. Today, operational improvement is probably approaching 50% of the way we generate value in these companies. This is the right way to do it, the right way to create value. And here is where those of us on today's call with operating experience, you bring a big plus to the private equity firms. Typically, the PE firm is staffed by financial types. That's not a condescending comment. And they are terrific and know more about it than I will ever know, and I couldn't do a thing without them. But my stereotype comment is a Wharton Finance MBA who's done X, Y, and Z, as opposed to a Mike Lorelli who's actually run 4 or 5 companies, who knows what it's like to bring in the monthly P&L. All right, because I am so private equity in the spirit of balance, I have to throw in a couple of black eyes. This is my favorite Wall Street Journal article several years ago about the various transactions behind Simmons Mattress, bought and sold 6 times in this 10-year time frame, right? A lot of companies made money, paid themselves nice dividends. Several went broke, left bondholders with 0 cents on the dollar. But to me, the shame, the market share of Simmons Mattress between 86 and 09, essentially unchanged. Black eye. Terminology, the people who give us money to go invest, they're the limited partner. We are the general partner. My last comment on venture capital, here are the results for private equity, the dark blue, for the S&P, still not so bad, even better as of late, post-Trump. Venture capital, those are the returns. People do this. I don't know why. They all hope they're going to be the next Apple computer. God bless. I hope for their sake it happens. I'll never contribute my money there. All right. Who gives us the money? Tremendous misperceived notion here. The world thinks it's a fat, cigar-smoking guy in a smoky room in a corner, and he's handing out dollar bills or $100,000 bills. In fact, the opposite is exactly the case. People giving money to PE to invest, the biggest segment, 28%, public pension funds. These guys are all underfunded. How are they going to make this up? Sure as heck not on T-bills. Many ways to categorize the 1,700 main private equity firms. One is by size, small, medium, large. Another is by sector specialty, which probably relates more to the people on this call, as I suspect that many of you have spent a good number of years in one industry and then maybe another, but not all over the lot. And private equity firms do a very good job at telegraphing what their sweet spot is. They do not want you wasting their time. So if you have a deal and it's in the IT space and you're calling on the door of North Castle Partners, who says their space is investors in healthy living and aging, which means nutrition, ingredients, fitness, home and leisure, this is not your audience. So if you're targeting a private equity firm and you've got a particular situation or deal thesis in mind, pay attention to the homepage. It'll help you save yourself and them a lot of time. Conversely, and this sounds like a contradictory statement, don't necessarily limit where you could play. All right? I started off as a B2C guy. I was CEO of Pepsi and CEO of Pizza Hut. And my next role was CEO of a mattress ingredient company, meaning they made the mattress cores that they sold as an OEM to Sealy, Simmons, Serta. That's about as far removed from consumer products as you could be. I found myself in later years running a industrial burn care products company. That is really far from consumer products. Now, obviously, if someone looked at me for an energy assignment, financial services, I'm a fish out of water, and I wouldn't know what to say. So with some reason, though, I do encourage people to think a little more broadly than what they're presently doing.
Mike, I have a question about that because this is like the chicken and egg we hear about all the time. We discuss it among all the talent division partners. How can, when people get across that they can work cross-functionally? Because private equity firms, and it all starts with the deal thesis, they all want to see angles or deal thesis or deals that fit often the executive's profile. Now, if the executive is bringing a deal, then they're willing to consider anything because the executive with a deal is that's the golden goose. But when they look at a deal thesis, they tend to say, hey, what expertise do you have about this? My theory about you is because everyone knows you in the world. I mean, that's my experience. So I'm talking to execs all the time. Yeah, I know Mike Lorelli and or PE firms. They all know you. They come to you because you're known as the guy who gets it done. How does one create a profile of themselves in that way? And where am I off base?
Yeah, so you're not off base. That probably is the single most important point to think about and rehearse going into a session. What you want to do typically is go in and show an example of a skill you acquired in X industry and how with some adaptation you applied it with the same success in Y industry. Now, as fast as I say that, and I don't want to appear off color here, my personal opinion is today private equity people are pretty open-minded about this. I'd say it's 70-30. 70 meaning they're going to bet on the jockey and you'll learn the industry. 30, they've got to have someone who's worked at the post office for 81 consecutive years. Recruiters are a little different, I would say, in their camp. It may be closer to 50-50. If they're looking for a razor blade guy, he's got to be at Gillette for 91 years, and he didn't even take a 1-week vacation to go camping. He just did 91 years at Gillette. My joking comment, but there's truth in it, when you come across a person and you ascertain that they are open-minded, give them as much time and convince them with the examples that I showed. When you come across a person, conversely, who's closed-minded, anal, and is going to insist on 81 years in the postal office, you are better off ending that conversation as politely as you can, not spend any more time, because that person with that closed mind, it would be easier for you to convince that person to entertain a sex change operation
so good,
than
yeah.
to feel that I can take this Pizza Hut guy and plop him into the mattress business.
That's so great, Mike. And, you know, what I encourage all the executives to do is our research shows if you have about 10%, recruiters aren't doing a whole lot these days in PE. Your best effort should be to build out a list of a few hundred PE firms and get good at presenting yourself via a deal thesis versus a resume. Back to you, Mike.
Yep. Very good point, Gerald. Thanks. Top fund managers, I list this. Good reference chart. I don't want to go through it, but just keep this in your reference notes. A better reference chart is not necessarily the people doing the huge deals, but who's doing a lot of the deals. So the Blackstones of the world and the TPGs, they're doing big transactions, but they're buying Chrysler, and maybe 3 more deals this year. A company like Riverside, who I had the enjoyment of working with for 5 years, bought 24 companies in 1 year. Now that meant a lot of change in that organization. A lot of changes for CEOs, which typically means CFOs change, which typically means CMOs change. So this is a good reference slide. Okay. I've got 4 slides in this entire deck that are the essence. So race fans, it all comes down to this. I bought a company that had $90 million in EBITDA. I said, I'm going to pay you 7 times, $630 million. I'm going to put cash in for me and my LPs of $270. I'm going to raise debt for the balance. This may be GE or whoever is my favorite credit supplier these days. And my dream is 5 years down the road, hypothetically, I build it from $90 million in EBITDA to $141. The next guy, because the company is stronger and I've top graded, says, Mike, I'm going to pay you 8. I know you paid 7. I've paid down a little bit of debt, 360 down to 320. That would be typical for a 5-year deal, still using other people's money. But here is the beauty. I put 270 in cash in. I have proceeds of 810. That is a 3 times cash on cash return. This is a honey. If this could happen all day long, I'll take, Gerald, I'm going to take you out to dinner at the finest restaurant in Chicago.
I'm looking forward to it, Mike. Let's go.
Now, that's the first slide to understand, and admittedly, I simplified it, and I did it a little bit more like the Johnny has 3 apples. He gave 2 to Susie. How many does he have left? Now, these next 2 slides are the other 2 of the 4. So the prior 2 show you how the transaction works for a company, what you'd like to see it look like. What I am now showing you in these 2 slides is how the total fund works over time. So I announce I've raised I have pledges for $300 million to go buy consumer products companies. That's the space I've defined. Nancy Pelosi is my spokesperson, and she bought company A. This is the outlay of cash. She bought B, bigger company. She bought C, she bought D, she bought E. She sold C after only about 18 months. This may have been somebody on her staff that just said, hey, I'm going to call Mike Lorelli out of the blue. We got to have this company. It's the perfect bolt-on acquisition for this thing that we own, and we can make a heck of a lot of money, and we're willing to overpay them a smidgen, and we think we could tempt them to offload it prematurely. Stuff happens. Looks like she bought F. Looks like she sold B, but look at the length of the bar. Sold B for a bath. Well, this happens too. You look at your partners in a Monday meeting and you say, guys, we blew it. The CEO we hired is the wrong guy. The bank is raining on us for being in violation of the covenants. Our deal thesis was completely wrong. Let's just get the hell out of here and cut our losses. It would be far more expensive to fire this guy, pay severance, pay recruiting fee for person next, and then keep our fingers crossed all over again. I'm going to come back to statistics in a little bit. Looks like she bought G, sold A for a very nice profit. Good going, Nancy Pelosi. Looks like she bought H. D, she sold for a very nice profit. Bought I. Looks like she sold E from the length of the bar for a loss. That happens. Nothing to be ashamed of. Bought J and F. So this is typically what a cycle, a 10-year cycle for the whole fund looks like. The prior 2 slides were each of the individual deals. This is the 10-year picture of the fund. So what we call this is the left side, as you can see on the bottom, the investment period, where we're doing more of the buying and the building. On the right side, this is the harvest period, where we're doing more of the selling, the realizations. All right, how does everybody get paid? When we buy a company, we then tap our LPs on the shoulder for their share of the pledge. We then start billing them 2%, and that pays salaries, rent, maybe some nominal bonuses, probably not. When a deal gets closed and we sell a company, right, the profit that's still left on the table is called carried interest. We take 20% of that profit. That goes in the private equity firm's pocket. That's what's referred to as the carried interest. and hopefully there is profit on the table. And then more importantly, hopefully there's profit on the table after that distribution is made. Hang on 1 second here. Okay. Now, how are we all measured? And these are public statistics. These are the three most popular. IRR, 20% is good. I don't know about you, but other than this Trump bump, I generally don't make 20% in my stock market portfolio. 28 is awesome. Cash on cash return. We showed you that one example where the investors got back 3 times their cash. That's pretty cool stuff. Hold period. If you're the limited partner, wouldn't you rather be seeing sales, transactional sales, sooner rather than later? Well, of course you would. So these are the 3 measures. And here is a typical 10-company fund result. 2 out of the park. Apple computers, just Facebook, out of the park, phenomenal. Some base hits, counts a lot, pays a lot of the rent, bonuses. And yes, 2 took the bank keys, the car keys. The bank comes to Mike and says, Mike, you've been violating the covenants for 5 months. We don't like the CEO. Candidly, we don't like the team that you've hired. We want the car keys. This happens. It's not embarrassing. And these are typical ratios. But the statistics here, using effective use of leverage, other people's money, help compensate for the black eyes. Funnel is an expression you may hear. This refers to, for any particular fund, how many deals do you have to look at to get one over the finish line? This is a good average for PEs. They will look at 300 teasers. That's the one-page write-up from an investment banker. And look at 100 books. They'll sign a confidentiality agreement in here. Look at 100 books. A book for me is a 4-hour read a night. I read 5 a week. Go in and see management, see what they're all about. Write 7 letters of intent. Do due diligence, spending your money on legal fees and accounting fees. On 2, to get 1 over the clothesline. 300 teasers to get 1 over the clothesline. This is why I keep telling my lady friend that I work hard. Okay, for some of you in transition in the audience, this one slide I added because it is relevant. Who does the PE want to meet? He's chasing 300 teasers. The guy is really busy. If you've got a deal that you really think that could be had, a company that you know is broken and you think could be bought and you know how to fix it, we want to hear from you.
And Mike, this is just a note, a little plug here. This is where Blackmore Partners, Inc., myself, Elaine Eldstein, and Rick Grady come in. We can help you qualify who the right PE firms are because they have narrow sweet spots and get you in front of, 50, 100, how many ever PE firms it takes to get that deal done, because just because there's a deal, it doesn't mean it's the right fit for the PE firm. So there's a lot of research that has to be done.
And actually, Gerald, that's probably where you personally bring the most value, but you never mix match. You understand this person has this deal thesis. These are the 5 private equity companies that would like to listen to it. And is a very good marriage to be made there, and that's the reason why we all return your phone calls.
Great point.
Okay, but the point I want to make on the slide is the last thing you want to do is position yourself in an email in your subject line, 27 years in the beer industry. I could fall asleep if I see a subject line that says 27 years in the beer industry. However, if I were a job seeker and I sent out a headline that said, beer industry deal exec, that's got a little tease element that you may have a potential transaction that you want to show to somebody. So keep this in mind. The closest you could be to the bullseye, the better reaction you're going to get as you flow in your emails. Invariably, at some point in the transaction, you're going to get it down to a simple one-page Excel sheet. It's got the company's financials. It's got your sources and uses of funds, some historic data, and then very importantly, how much equity are you going to set aside for the management team? Now, I'm not gun shy on this. This is a company that I tried to buy in 2007, Twin Labs out on Long Island, a vitamin nutrition company, and I was not bashful as I shopped this to private equity firms, that I said that if we buy this, I am carving out 15 points of equity for management, of which 5.5 was going to go to this guy, Mike Lorelli, yours truly. 3 points were going to go to the CFO, who was incredibly important in that organization. 2 points to the EVP, and down, down, down. But the key point is, if we bought this, we wanted an upfront agreement that we were going to have 15 points of equity participation. The article that Gerald is going to circulate, I'm not going to try to do justice to in 1 or 2 slides, but when that gets pushed out, NACD publishes a monthly magazine, all crammed with terrific articles. They asked me to write an article, given that I'd been a Fortune president a couple of times, as well as a PE president 5 times. They asked me to write an article on the differences between someone who's successful in the former versus the latter. There are differences. Before you go in and interview in a session, you do want to read this article. And the article is here also in the slides. So at the end of the day, I think people trying to land in PE can get there by way of one of these 3 strategies: marketing yourself, being found, and last on the list, this does not have application for most people on this call who are more senior, starting with a service firm. Nothing wrong with that. I want to spend a couple of minutes on each of these 3 strategies. Marketing yourself, as Gerald says all the time, you bring somebody a deal, life doesn't get any better in their life. Solving a particular problem they have, life doesn't get any better than them. Getting in bed and getting experience with a firm by way of getting on one of their boards. It could be a different company board. That's a good way to start improving a relationship and showing that you guys are compatible. Okay? Being found is my next strategy. This actually goes back to the first point that Gerald interjected. Your LinkedIn profile, whatever you think its importance is, triple it. I coach a lot of clients in my private equity consulting private practice, which is fasterlandings.com. I always ask a new client, how good do you think your LinkedIn profile is? And he tells me, I think it's above average. And I say, well, what percentage of candidates do you think are found on LinkedIn? And they typically tell me 10, 15%, maybe 7.5%. And I say, wrong. Today, 40, 50% of candidates are found on their LinkedIn profiles. And if they didn't find you there, with 100% odds, the person in the recruiting process is going to go check out your LinkedIn profile, and it better be top box. I just can't say enough about the importance of LinkedIn. My last strategy is starting with a service firm, and I mentioned that that's not particularly appropriate for people on this call, but for junior people just trying to get into a firm at a ground level, going to work for an Alvarez and Marcel or one of the other turnaround firms is a very good idea.
Mike, a note about marketing yourself.
Yeah.
The Blackmore Connects group, one of the ways it helps executives is to develop an acquisition-based deal thesis versus a resume and sending that out. What we hear from private equity firms, Mike, I do, my recruiting firm, is they're looking for executives that have angles on an industry and niches because they just see everything at the forest canopy level. The executives, you folks on this phone, you are like river guides, and they need you badly. But the question becomes, if you just send a resume and you put the pressure to them to figure out where they can use you, you're creating too much work. But if you develop a deal thesis template, and by the way, I sent each of you, the Blackmore Connects group developed a bio and deal thesis template that is becoming the industry standard for presenting ideas to private equity and getting their attention. So use that, send it to us, and then we'll talk to you a little bit about the purple squirrel strategy, and it will guarantee, out of reaching about 200 PE firms by email, it's a 25% each time you email these PE firms using the purple squirrel strategy. Back to you, Mike.
Yep. All right. Now, unfortunately, I was getting fancy, and I was trying to go offline. But while I'm doing it, since I've completely screwed this up, I want to show you an example of how Google is used by private equity people when we're looking for candidates. So if a recruiter told if a CEO chairman told a recruiter, I need another board member, I think the person's in the tri-state New York area, no sense my taking on, I'm a New Jersey company, a new board member from New Jersey, he's going to kill the day company and going. I want someone who's been a CEO, he could be retired, but he's been in the chair. And I want someone that's got board experience so that I don't have to explain committees. So that recruiter would go back to his desk, and he would go to Google, which I just did when you were talking, Gerald, and I typed in CEO, NYC, outside director. Now, this is not braggadocio, but number one out of 480 million people is Mike Lorelli. Number two is Mike Lorelli. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I know I have one more hit on the next page. I have a hit on this page here again. If you scroll to the bottom, you can see that there are 9 more pages behind it. This is what a recruiter does. Trey Reynolds in 2004, Russ Reynolds' son, told me he laid off his research department. He said he uses LinkedIn. Odds are the information is more current than an outdated resume they may have in their file. He told me he didn't even know how to log on to his database anymore. LinkedIn is where it is at. Now, I want to go to...
Mike, as you're talking about it, LinkedIn is where it's at, but I'll tell you right now, the private equity partners and the executives, the PE operating partners who sit on the board, they don't have a lot of time. They tend to go to people they know and meet through the course of life. I don't hear a lot about them going to do their own searches on LinkedIn. What's your comment on that?
Yeah. So Gerald, it's your comment is spot on, and it's for 2 reasons. Either reason is good enough. We're either too cheap and we don't want to hire a recruiter, or we're moving faster than fast. I need to have my board tomorrow. All right? So either one of those reasons are good reasons. So we tend to do an awful lot of these on our own. But let me just show the audience a little graph. Faster Landings, by the way, is the website for my consulting practice. And Faster Landing Board Seats is the tab And if you go to More and Killer LinkedIn Profiles, you've got this blue pyramid. In my coaching practice, I always ask a new client, how good is your resume? 100% of the people think, I think it's really good. I mean, I'd probably put 60 hours in. I think it's really good. I say, terrific, terrific, nice job. How good is your LinkedIn profile? I think it's above average. I put about 10 hours in. Someday I'm going to get around to improving it, and I have to throw them out of the room, not literally. Because if you look at this pyramid, what it's basically telling you is if you have an above average LinkedIn profile, given that there are 480 million members, you are 1 in 5,000. You have lots of company. If you tell me yours is above average, you still have lots of company. It's you and 2,000 other people. So let's go back to the little query I did on myself, where I showed up with a couple of hits, and there were 10 pages, each page with 10 names or articles. So a recruiter would click through 10 pages, and easily he'd have 20 names. If someone tells me they have an above-average profile, that recruiter would have to comb through not 10 pages with 10 names per page. He would have to comb through 2,000 pages to go find you. So the blunt comment I have to make to that innocent person is that in the eyes of that recruiter, you have not been born on this planet. It is simply unacceptable to have an above average or even very good LinkedIn profile. If you are lazy.
Yep. And Mike, you know, and the challenge about LinkedIn, and everyone definitely go to Mike, go to Faster Landings, look at Mike's landing board seats, coaching services, fantastic. And the other thing I encourage everyone to do is don't use passive strategies. If you want to get into private equity, be proactive. Start developing your deal thesis and an acquisition-based deal thesis. Work with Blackmore, and we'll help you go find the companies. We have strategies. We have databases. We can help you monetize your network. But if you're waiting to be called by some recruiter to find you from private equity, you are going to be waiting for a long time. Stop. My message to the folks on this team, stop being a wage slave. Get equity. But it's going to take a different behavior than what you're used to, and we call that a proactive purple squirrel strategy, either a deal thesis to market directly to PE firms or a deal.
Very good. That was an excellent summary, so I appreciate that, Gerald. So the 3 core strategies are market yourself. These are the ways. Being found. LinkedIn. So easy. Close your door. Don't do email. All right? Don't answer the phone. Close your door. 2 hours is all it would take to fix your LinkedIn profile. Let me go on here. I'm running out of time. We talked about this. The prime pieces of real estate are your headline, where there are 120 characters available to you, and the summary block, where there are 2,000. In the headline, you want to put in the keywords for which someone is likely to input doing a search. So high on the list before you run out of space should not be your present assignment, because in all likelihood, the only person that's going to Google for a person in your present assignment is your mother. So I'd rather see you use other searchable keywords. Must words to get into your headline. You can look at this as you download the files. Good words to put in the summary section, where you'll get a lot of traction in private equity. Service provider, I'm not knocking. A lot of people I know have made a lot of money getting into, entry-level assignments with Alex partners and the like, and have grown up and been promoted up and have been well into the seven figures. Here are some websites that list a lot of real-time positions. So make note of this as you print out the slides that Gerald has pushed out. As an example, private equity has got a jobs tab. LoCap is one of the best recruiters for private equity. Private equity jobs has got a tab with positions. ACG, even though these tend to be more heavily financial oriented assignments, at any point, even with that caveat, at any point in time, they probably have 20 open jobs on their site. So I kind of start circling back here and say you got to change your orientation, back off your typical DNA, bragging about you've been with PepsiCo for 17 years and you've been a president twice, but rather talk to them about what matters to them. You've improved the EBITDA CAGR in every assignment. Now, what the PEs say they're looking for are these skills. So this is a good page for you to print out before you walk into an interview and talk to these points. Build in themes from this checklist. My favorite is The Martian, for people who remember the movie. I mean, that guy, if anybody, was the scrappiest guy on the planet who could make electricity and energy out of mushrooms. We love that stuff in private equity where pennies matter. Some curveballs. You will be asked about co-investing. At some point, the senior person is going to look at you and say, Gerald, we really are interested in you. Everything looks great. We've got a lot of money in this transaction. We don't want to make money on you, but we would like to have you come in, coincide, and invest at the price that we paid. The stock is actually worth more today, Gerald, than what we paid for it 4 months ago, but we're willing to give it to you for that price. So let me ask you, Gerald, how much of a check could we expect that you'd be writing? This is a curveball question. It's not that they need the money. They just want to see that Gerald is shivering in his pants in his bed at night as much as they are.
Absolutely.
Now, the second key question is, okay, Gerald, you told me $150,000, but just so I can calibrate that, Gerald, what % of your liquid net worth does that represent? Right? If you tell me you've got a $500 boat and a $250,000 plane and 2 vacation houses and you're worth $4 million, well, that $250,000 that you're going to write to me doesn't sound like you're going to lose sleep over a lot. But if you tell me it's basically half of your personal net worth, that calibrates.
That's really great, Mike. By the way, they don't ask that question if you're a guy that's bringing a deal because of all the sweat work that you did. But when you are being hired by private equity, this is common.
Yep. Thank you. For consultants on the line, I've got 2 slides. This is a rich vault of opportunity if gone about the right way. The areas where consultants could pitch when they see an announcement that XYZ bought QRX is to say, hey, we are in our prime writing strategic plans. I want that assignment. I want to do the category segmentation for you. I see that you don't have any experience in that category. I want to do a killer competitive assessment for you on XYZ that you're buying. I want to work with a team. I know they're sparse and develop the 100-day plan. I want to be the one coming up with rapid change ideas across all channels, functions, brands, geographies. I love this one for my PepsiCo training. Be the meanest about sucking the eyeballs out of the competitor, making them bleed, is a winning strategy.
I love that.
Show them how they should acquire to add new markets fast, new channels fast, new products fast, footprint fast. Here's my short list of recruiters that do a far disproportionate share in the space. Certainly write out to them. Boards. Everybody on this call should be thinking about boards. You need to be on one board by your 40s. One. Maybe even 30s. Two by your late 40s. Three by your 50s. I give a seminar on this, and I also do a one-on-one training program. When I do my seminar, I choose 150 CEOs, Stanford, Marriott, wherever it is, and I tell them those stats about being on two by your 40s, three by your 50s. And invariably, a very nice gentleman will stand up. He looks like he's about 63, and he'll say, Mike, I really thought I was just going to stand up and announce to the world, I'm 64 tomorrow. I've worked for these big bang pizzazz companies with these fancy titles. I'm ready for board seats. The line can form at my feet. Doesn't work that way. A recruiter looking for you and other people like you in your 40s is going to create a slate of 5 candidates who all are perfectly on the client-written spec. Your mission is not to be perfectly on the client-written spec. Your mission is to outdistance the other 4 candidates. You need to be the tallest duck in that pond. You do not wait till age 64. So my point number 1 is it's never too late, and certainly not by your 50s. That is too late. The other point I'd like to bring out is there are a tremendous number of private equity board seats available, a huge number. There are 7,500 reported PE firms, typically with 2 outside directors, plus another 7,500 unreported. I don't mean unreported as an illegal alien. I mean unreported as in it just doesn't show up in the statistics from the various services. 22,000 board roles, and these things pay good money. I'm going to venture a guess that everybody on this phone call needs to put this on their agenda.
Yeah, Mike, and I want to encourage people to go to your website, fasterlandings.com, and click on the board roles. Talk to Mike and see if his consulting service can be of help to you. By the way, he takes on very few clients, so please know that if he can't take you on, it's not personal. He's very busy running on multiple boards and chairman and operating partner. And lastly, about that landing board roles, Mike, I want to say to these executives, and you and I believe this, market yourself directly to private equity firms. Do not be doing this passive strategy and waiting for recruiters to call you. They don't have the skin in the game that you do. It's easier to build out a list through Blackmore Connects or go to the 25 ACG members meetings a year and shake hands. Build out your list. Directly email using the purple squirrel strategy. The first things they give executives to kind of curry you in their favor is they give out consulting assignments and board roles.
Gerald, thanks very much for that little bit of a pitch. I do appreciate that. But what you said is just totally spot on. If you're going to wait for your doorbell to ring, it may ring. It'll ring better if you're Alan Mullally, former retired turnaround guy at Ford, or somebody else, like that. Zuckerberg gets his phone ringing all day long. But if you want to see it happen in your lifetime, there is a process and a methodology to get you through it. My website for it is fasterlandings.com. which is my coaching practice. And then there's a tab on landing board seats that goes through that in a little more detail. Anyway, summing up, Gerald, this is the roadmap. Print this one page. Be thinking about which of these strategies and tactics are the best for you. I am available to take questions. Here is my contact information. And I strongly suggest that people take a look at my LinkedIn profile. Strongly suggest, because there are a lot of private equity and board seat tips in the way that website has been constructed. It'll be more obvious to you now that we've gone through this seminar, but please go to my LinkedIn profile. You will learn a lot that I hope you feel free to plagiarize. So, Gerald, it's Q&A, and it's all to you. Looks like we've lost Gerald or me.
Oh, sorry, I was there and I was talking into the mute button. Okay, I've gotten the box open. The first one is, you indicated at the start that Blackmore mentors individuals in developing a deal thesis. If an individual has a non-compete with a previous employer, how is this taken into consideration or vetted when developing the thesis? First of all, having ideas is not, thought crimes are not being persecuted as of this moment in our legal system. So you're getting started on a deal thesis for an industry and segment you know is not the same as going to work for a competitor. Too many executives go to the beach when they're on their transition because they're getting paid 12 to 24 months. Don't do it. Get started. If you're going to get a deal done, that takes 12 to 24 months to get in. Private equity. If you're going to land a job in private equity, it's anywhere from 3 months to 12 months. It all depends on your big funnel. If you have a funnel of 200 PE firms that you're reaching out, it's going to be in the 3 to 6 months. But if you only have 10 PE firms and you're hoping for a role, it could take 3, 5 years, 10 years, or never. Most execs only know 10 private equity firms, and they're thinking that they're going to get a job. Just very unlikely given the statistics that Mike has gone out. Mike, another person is asking, can you speak to the different types of PE cultures or philosophies that one might encounter? I'm going to answer it first. My first encounter is you got to go off and meet private equity firms. We could tell you all day long and do hours of seminars on this, but the only way you're going to find out is by going and getting to know private equity firms in 15-minute meetings over the phone and studying their website. Mike?
Yeah, great intro, Gerald. Thanks. So I'm going to try to make this as non-political as I can by drawing an analogy to meeting your future spouse. So a woman trying to meet a guy, you're going to meet some interesting people, some handsome people, some polite people, some poor people, some adventurous people, some bums, and whatever else. And the same is true in private equity. I like to believe, and I've been in this space for 17 years, that it is a wonderful space. A lot of money can be had, mutually gratifying engagements, and I've met a tremendous number of extraordinarily high IQ people. However, having said that, there are a small percentage of people that I affectionately say like to reuse dental floss. So with all the images that might bring up about reusing dental floss, I am suggesting there are a percentage which are cheap. But they are in the minority, not in the majority, but they are there. It's hard to say. You know, every private equity firm has its own culture, its own chemistry, its own style. You know, I've tended to stay with the ones that I've had a lot of respect for, and you know, I don't think any of your clients would have any difficulty figuring out if a PE sitting across the table is someone they would want to be in bed with or not.
Great answer, Mike. Here's a question. Do you have any listings of PE firms and their specialty industry and the size of business targets? Yes, Blackmore, through the Blackmore Connects organization, contact Nathan Collins, and Nathan and the Blackmore Connects has an extensive database ranging from 900 contacts by every industry and segment and up to our major database, over 12,000. One of the ways you can get a list is through, besides being a member of Blackmore Connects, and it's free as being a member, but there's PitchBook. PitchBook these days is running about $20,000 a year. Bloomberg is another one, about $22,000 a year, and there's a few others. But there are lower cost ways to go. Go to the conferences, shake hands, get cards. That's a way to start. Or just join Blackmore Connects. It's all included in your conference fees and for the bronze members. Mike, here's someone who says, how does one identify the private equity partner or partners behind the funding of a target company? So I'm assuming the executives knows it's owned by the PE firm, but how do I know which guys are on the board so I can contact them about what I can do?
Yeah, almost all of that should be very, very readily available. If you go to any private equity portfolio company site, there usually is a tab for leadership, and there usually also is a tab for governance. So if you go to the Rita's Italian ISIS site for leadership, it shows me as the interim CEO still today, since our new person isn't starting for a couple of weeks. And it also shows me on the board and the other board members. So very, very easy to tap into that, Gerald.
Okay, and conversely, if you go to the private equity site and then look at the partners, usually it says which one was involved in the deal, and those the associates and the partners and the VPs are all listed out, and so definitely a great place to start with it. Mike, that's about it for the questions.
Cheryl, let me just interject one thought there.
Yeah.
Always on the website, PEs do a great job of announcing deals bought, deals sold. And deals bought will always have quotes from one person at the deal firm. Well, generally, that's the person who's going to end up being the chairman of the company. So as you're trying to pick and choose who you want to write to, that's your person.
Okay. Mike, I want to just thank you for your time and attention. Once again, I want to encourage those of you looking to land board seats to get a note, get a consultation with Mike right away. He has very limited slots, and you do want to see if that's a good fit for you. If you want to get into private equity and speed it up in a 3 to 6 month time frame, we recommend that you contact blackmoreconnects.com. Get yourself to be a member and go to the Blackmore Connects conferences. The private equity firms that are coming to those conferences are looking for one thing. They're looking for C-level executives with ideas. And if you're an executive with ideas for growth, ideas for targets, you want to be at those conferences. Thanks so much, Mike.
Gerald, so I only have one request of you.
Yes.
The next really hot deal you get from one of your Blackmore Connects clients, you're going to bring it to me.
I'll do that, Mike. I'll take you up on it. Smart move. See you soon.
Thanks, Gerald.
Bye-bye.